And we're off to the races. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we? This is a fantastic week. Yesterday, I was out in Riverside County with my son. We were just taking in all that punk rock history. Boy, it's rich in history, that little town. I got to tell you, we went to this cool little museum you got to check out in Riverside, Riverside Art Museum. It's fantastic. We also head over to the Cheech Marin's got some cool art, great art pieces, a collection of over 300 art pieces. It's fantastic, it's phenomenal, and that one's there to stay. The other one, I think it's 60 miles east or something. It's the punk piece that's going to be around until April. Otherwise, I'm excited, guys, because today I have a fellow podcaster. It's not every day that I have a fellow podcaster. I've had a famous comedian a couple of days ago, Renee Percy, and I had a few other singers and artists and whatnot. And today I'm delighted because we're going to exchange ideas, and I hope I'm not doing all the talking today. I'm kidding. I'm sure we won't. I have a brilliant podcaster. This guy doesn't just host one, he hosts three podcasts, and then two of them we're going to be talking about. The guy is, he's originally from Miami, I believe, and then he lived in New York. There was in New York, and now he's from Boston. I love Boston. He's a producer, a cultural commentator, known for creating thoughtful, queer forward conversations. He's the voice behind everything and anything, and a bit gay. And listen up, girl. Guys, give it up for the one and only Zach Randles Friedman.
Hi, thanks for having me on. Very nice to meet you.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. How's it going? We were talking about off camera a little bit. Mm. Sorry, I'm always drinking water. People's like, you're always with the cup. Every time I see pictures and stuff, you're always drinking. I need to drink plenty of water. I'm trying to lose weight. I went on a little jog, a 3-minute jog.
Yeah.
went over to, I went over to get the mail and back. I consider that a jog. No, I did go for a little jog around the block. I'm excited. Thanks for coming on, Zach. It's fantastic. I know we were talking about the weather, and
Yes.
47, 48 degrees. It was 47 degrees last night here in Cali. And I got to tell you, it was cold. It was
That's not cold
blistering
though.
cold.
That's not
And it's
cold.
not. I know. And that's a great argument that we can have because you've lived in some pretty cold places, but albeit you've also lived in Miami, which is nice
And I don't
you
know
know,
how I lived in Miami, and in the '80s, I remember at one point we didn't
mhm.
have an air conditioning in the house that we had, and
What?
I have no idea how. It was early '80s. I have no idea how we survived. I think my parents' room had a window air conditioning unit,
Yeah.
and then that was it. So there's no central air. And then we were renting the house for a few years, and then when we moved to the house that we bought, we had air conditioning then. But I don't know how to survive like those couple of years with no air conditioning in Florida.
Wow. I can relate. Living in LA, and we're like in the forest part of LA of the east side.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, we were fanning each other with cardboards and
yeah,
creating like makeshift, like we would put up curtains and cloaks up on over the windows,
yes,
keep the sunlight out. We try to. It's a survival mechanism that we kick into, most definitely, and that's how mom, God rest her soul, kept us cool.
yeah.
For the
Well, we had a pool, so in the summer when we didn't have school, we would be in the pool the whole summer. So
Oh yeah. My wife,
um,
it's funny, my wife feels the same exact way. She says she was always in the pool and
yeah,
until she shriveled up and she was 90 years old. She run the first time over to her mom. Mom, am I
yeah,
aging that fast?
yeah, exactly. But that was the only way
Crazy,
to
right?
keep cool back in the day. So that's what
Yeah.
we did. And then I moved to I lived in Dallas, Texas for a year and a half, just
A
a
Lone
couple of years
Star.
ago.
Wow.
And I never can live in a state in the South again because it's so I can't do the heat. I just can't do it.
Ugh.
And then Boston, 47, 48 degrees is like awesome weather for me. I mean, I walked out yesterday and had a short sleeve shirt on and walked down and did some errands because that's not cold.
Wow, Zach. Now you're really you're now just totally ribbing me. You're telling me, you know what, dude, you can't handle it. And because in Cali, you guys are dying. It's 47. Yeah, if it's under 52 or 55, we're like dying over here. Dude, people, you've been out in LA.
Yeah.
People have like 3 layers of clothing and stuff. I have to say the other factor to consider for obvious reasons is you acclimate yourself to the weather,
You
the
do.
environment you're in. I mean, needless to say, you know and so your body tends to pick up on what's trending, so to speak, and then after a while, it just we have a way to sort of justify not wearing the jacket because I've been here long enough that my body's okay with it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's everywhere I've moved. I've moved 18 times in 27 years, so
you're a chameleon, bro. 18 times?
18 times.
Holy mother of God. Okay, let's real quick. Name some places you've lived in.
I've lived in New York City for a while. I grew up in Miami, went back to Miami, went back to New York. I lived in Philadelphia. I lived in
Really?
Basel, Switzerland. I lived in Dallas, Texas. I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina for a short time, um, and Boston. And
Wow.
just different, in New York, I lived in Manhattan, another Manhattan apartment. I went to Brooklyn, back to Manhattan. So, those are all the different moves. It wasn't all necessarily moving cities, but
Get it. Get it.
moving
It
to
was just like
moving
me.
to moving to Switzerland and then coming back a year later. That was a tough move. So
Yeah, that must have been culture, like somewhat, I would say like a culture clash of sorts. Like you go into another place and you've never been to
yeah,
before, and it's a whole new environment.
yeah. I mean, I went to Switzerland before. I just never lived there and living there. So I left New York, and it has 8 million people in it. I went to a town called Basel, Switzerland, that had 350,000 people, and I just couldn't adapt to it. It was too small for me, and the way that it works in Switzerland is that everything on Sunday is closed. And I'm used to 24-hour stuff in New York staying open all the time, and I just couldn't adjust. So
Yeah,
it was a short-lived
man.
1 year trip.
Yeah, definitely creatures of adaptation, most definitely. And
Yeah,
if evolution or anything teaches us right, there are bears with too much hair on them, and there's some that
yeah,
have no hair, and
yeah.
depending where they're at. I have a question for you. So, like, you were like was it for business? These travels, if you don't mind me asking, you're like living in different parts. You just say, I don't want to live in this place. It's too small. I feel claustrophobic. Let's get a bigger spot. Let's move into that other city up the street, or yeah, in New York, like
In New York, I was living in a studio, and then I moved in with the person that I was dating. We moved into a one-bedroom, and we, upgraded. We both lived in studios, and then I was in New York City and I was downtown during 9/11 working at the World Financial Center. And then I just didn't want to live in Manhattan anymore. I just didn't feel like comfortable with it. So I'm
it's a
like,
good.
let's move to Brooklyn. So we moved to this one apartment in Brooklyn. It was a brand new building and had an elevator that opened up inside of the apartment itself. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice, but it really was kind of a shit apartment. Oh, if I could say that. Um, and then we stayed there for a year, and then we ended up getting this much bigger apartment in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and lived there. And then I just got sick of living in New York, and I went back to Florida, bought a house, um, thought I wanted to stay there. Then my company's like, no, we need you to come to Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta too, after I mentioned.
Atlanta. Wow.
And then my company got bought, and then they're like, well, we need you to move to Philly. So I moved to Philly. And then, like, we're going to give you a promotion a couple of years later, and then we need you to move to North Carolina. So I did that. And I didn't like North Carolina, so I got a job back in New York and moved there. And then
You're a
kept going.
nomad.
Yeah, but I've got one more move left, and we're going to look for a house to buy tomorrow. And
Okay.
I want to buy this next house and not leave it. I want to, like, that's my house. That's going to be forever. So we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows?
Kudos to you, bro. You're doing it. You're making it happen, bro. You're living the American dream. You're
Yeah,
migrating. Everyone wants to migrate different to the California. You've migrated so many places, dude, and you've lived it. You made it work in every which way. And then they say, "Hey, by the way, we can offer you some more money. Why don't you move over here?" Ah, why
yeah.
not? Never been.
It was always for the
A whole
money,
new
but
adventure.
it was the adventure too, though. I mean, like that.
Yeah.
Living in Switzerland, I didn't love it, but I got, you could get on an airplane or a train every weekend and, like, in an hour and a half be in a different country, and it was amazing. So I see more of Europe in a year than most people see in their whole life. So it was amazing from that aspect.
That is fantastic. Now let's board on the subject matter that we're most familiar with, podcasting.
Yeah.
When did you get the bug, man, that you want to be a podcaster? How early, or how did that come about?
Um, so I was working for a company, and I came up with an idea to do a podcast, but it was going to be for internal only, like to interview our like leadership and employees, and then a couple of the episodes ended up going externally, and they did well. And then I left that company, and I didn't want to see the videos or hear my voice because I didn't like my voice, and I didn't want to see myself on video because you don't sound like what you think you sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
But whenever I did this internal podcast, I had to edit them, and I had to look at them, and I had to review them. So I got used to hearing my voice and got used to seeing myself on camera. And then whenever I left, I'm like, that was kind of fun. Like maybe I should do my own podcast. So, I had an idea about, my name of my podcast is Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay. And so I have anything that I want to talk about is what I do. And I kind of stay away from politics on that show, and I don't talk about people's, who they voted for or anything. I try to stay away from it. And I interview everybody and I was finding my guests at first. I'm going to Instagram and TikTok and trying to find people I thought that were interesting and trying to convince them. And I had a lot of my friends on the first season. But I have everything from, I had a Real Housewife on my show. I've had DJs and people that have been in cults and escaped them, and
Dude,
psychics and mediums, and just artists and just creators. I have had all types of people.
yeah,
I just
an
interviewed a
array of
woman.
people.
I just interviewed this woman today who was in a cult until she was 19 years old. And, she escaped, and her whole family, and just four siblings that escaped with her. And there's sex trafficking we talked about, and all this craziness. So it's
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
I like telling people stories that have an interesting story to tell, and they're inspirational. And
Hmm.
I had this one woman named Angela Ford, which is probably one of my most favorite interviews. She was on Sean Ryan's podcast and Mayim's Breakdown podcast. So she's been on some major podcasts. And I'm like, I'm going to email her just to see if she'll come on my podcast, not expecting she would. And she said yes. And what she did is that she was in the CIA in the 80s, and she did remote viewing. And what remote viewing is that she could go and tell the CIA like where somebody was. And so there was this man that was on America's Most Wanted list,
Yeah,
and she kept saying he's in Wyoming, and they're like, no, no,
right.
no, he's not in Wyoming, he's in Florida somewhere. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, he's in Wyoming. But no, this guy is doing drugs. He's not, trafficking drugs and stuff. He's not in Wyoming. He's not there. 2 weeks later, they came up like, where do you think he is now? She's like, he's still in Wyoming, and he's at this hotel, and he's
Holy
by
moly.
this thing. And they're like, fine, we'll send somebody there. They sent the task force there, and the guy was right there. So she knew exactly who. Like Wyoming is so random, so she was
Yeah.
able to like do this, and she's such an amazing woman, and I just like love talking with her, and she just has amazing stories like that. So those are the
How?
people I like to talk stories about.
Yeah, I agree with you because um it's fantastic. I like when you have artists, they're usually promoting things, and that's always great and all. But when you get these intricately, like I would
Yeah,
say, profound individuals with such stories that are either heartbreaking, or they'll tug at your heart in some way, shape, or
yeah,
fashion, or maybe your psyche, that's next level. Like when you have someone like that, it sounds to me like a Mo, or someone that's working, within the inner workings of a certain place or something. Like for example, her being part of the CIA, dude, it's the most dangerous job.
yeah,
You're going in and working with these people, making them believe that you're one of them, and you're just hanging out, and then in the
yeah,
meantime, you turn around and now you're giving your people the green light as to where the person is. And I think it sounds very much. All this is obviously a great segue into Maduro. I'm curious as to, and then we're not going to dabble too long in politics. This is just because being that we're talking about the CIA, it
yeah,
sounds to me like that's what she would have done, right? Had they have to, that's kind of a part of her job. In if it were modern day, like somebody doing
Yeah,
that line of work where they have to stake him out and find out exactly where the house is where he was held up.
exactly. That's kind of like what she can do. She can. So let's say there's, Maduro's a perfect example. So wherever he was hiding out, she could have. I know they had probably satellites and other people on the ground in Venezuela looking and knowing where he was. But if they didn't, she could like kind of focus in and find out exactly where he is and tell the
Hmm.
intelligence community, this is where he's at. He's here with his wife, and
Yeah.
whatever. And she could find him. And she teaches classes. She teaches people how to do this. She says anybody can do it. So
Really?
yeah, so she's I took her class. I was able to do it. Not as good
Oh,
as
what?
her.
Wait, hold off, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second.
Okay.
Back up again. You took her class
Yes, I
and you
took
were
her.
able to do it. So you worked, I mean, you dabbled in it or just a
Well,
tad? Let's talk about it.
so basically, what it is, it's a 6 week class, and it's like on a Monday night at 7 o'clock for 2 hours. And she goes through, and there's 10 or 15 other people in the class, and you go in, and she kind of tells you like what your target is, like what are you supposed to be looking for. All right, and,
Mm.
and one thing she'll say, I'm think about, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I believe that anybody can do anything in some ways, and she said everybody has this ability to do it, and she's going to show us how. So I went in with a very open mind. But
Right.
she said, come in and tell me where in the United States you think that I am, where I've written down. And you would kind of go through, and then you would say, like, I got Florida, and that's where it was. Or not, you go, I'm at the southeast is kind of where I think it is. And it was, you get the southeast, and then you do it, and she goes, think more and think about this, and I got Florida. And she goes, okay, that's right. Now think about where in Florida. And I'm like, kind of like Central Florida. And she goes, yep. So tell me where in Central Florida. And I'm like, and you're thinking about it, and it's like Daytona Beach. And then she shows it, and it was Daytona Beach is what she wrote down. And so you were able to kind of like do it. So not, and then but there was other people that were in the class that actually, there was a woman named Belva who helps find missing children, and that's her job as a remote viewer.
Rest her heart.
If a child
Beautiful.
goes missing, she's able to locate them or help locate them.
Yeah.
And she works with a team of people that do this. And unfortunately, a lot of times when they find the child, though, with her, they're not the child is no longer living, but they're
Yeah.
able, the family's able to kind of put closure on it, as she said.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah, I had to halt right there because it was super fascinating to hear the story. I watch tons of things on cults. It's funny because we were just watching one about a real, and you mentioned Real House. There's a Real House of Utah, and there's
Yes,
the lady, the lady Mary Cosby.
I'm watching that now.
What? Get out of
Yeah,
town, are you?
I'm watching that. I'm on episode 2. So,
It gets we're not going to give it away here. It's not spoiler alert here, but we definitely have to watch. It's one to watch. Now, is that HBO Max? I want to say because
it
we have
is.
so many
It
different
is.
ones that.
It's
Okay,
HBO Max.
that's one to look out for. Now, I will go down the freaking rabbit hole as I'm sure you do. It teaches you a lot in that after you watch them, they all kind of have the same recipe.
Yeah.
The people that are the cult leaders, they talk about money more than anywhere else, and then they try to pit you against your own family and then isolate you. And
Yeah.
then, of course, you're always granted during which time you're always attached to the leader and you think
Yeah.
that the leader becomes a supreme being. And
Yeah.
at some point,
They
he's
think she's
God.
God. They think she's God. But she
But I
had
mean,
people taking mortgages out on their house for $300,000 and giving it to her. Like, how do you have the
this
power
is,
to do that? I mean, that's insane.
yeah. So, and I think like there was one where I saw, I don't know if you've seen these, like they're like, I wish I had the name. I've seen so many. I binge watch these. And there's one I try to remember where there was these couples and they had gotten scammed. And obviously they do the romantic scam. I think it's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
rom con. I think that's what
Yeah.
it's called.
Yeah.
And you basically have this lady, dude, who lies that she has cancer and shit, And then like there's this other lady that says, I need money for this. I
Yeah.
need money for that. And then she turns around and says, you don't love me anymore. You vilify your spouse. Like
Yeah.
if you love me, you would never do that. I mean, what if I were your mother? How would you feel? And then so okay, here's more money. And they're taking, like you said, they take out money, they
Yeah.
take out loans and stuff. I mean, it's insanity. One dude bottomed out. He was at 200. He was in the hole like 200,000. He's not like a dude with money or anything, like everything, right down to there was the guy that had a job with I'm trying to say I think he got landed a gig with Nintendo,
Yeah.
once upon a time. But these people are merciless, they're heartless, they're
Well, the
gonna
woman Mary on that on a Real Housewives
yeah,
cult show, she has like rooms and rooms full of Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Prada and Chanel, and she just like everything she wears is designer European brand. So she's taking all, and she has 5 or 6 houses, I think, right? That's
yeah,
what they. She
in
has a
Vegas,
penthouse in
all
New
over.
York. Yeah, like
Hey, hey
insanity.
Zach, I'm curious. What did you think about like the age gap? It was funny because it was like he's 20 years younger than the grandmother, then marries, yes, we're about to say this, marries the granddaughter. And let's face it, it's not they're not blood related, but the idea that
Yes,
he's the grandfather. Now he's marrying the granddaughter who's he has a 20-year gap with her.
yes.
So the whole
It's
thing is mind-boggling. I mean, like and then you think about the grandma. Did you think about the grandma mama for a second? Like, what was she? Obviously, we know what she had in her mind dating the 20-year old gap, because we
yeah. But they didn't go into her enough from what I've seen so far, where they didn't like talk about her necessarily being a cult leader. So it
yeah,
feels
that's
like
that's about to happen.
oh, it
I
is
think.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot more, dude, that you and I are gonna uncover. So
yeah,
it's needless to say, we're gonna have to do a part two of this.
yeah,
catch up,
exactly.
catch up on it. But no, there are all these talking heads, all these people like these, internet sleuths are all raving about it because it is very outlandish and wild in every which way. I mean,
But what I think is so amazing or crazy is that she's on this show on a reality show that she's got so much into the C-list celebrity at this point, I guess. And
yeah,
she make a lot of money doing cameos and
mhm,
appearances and doing all this stuff. And now she's kind of ruined her career because I don't see how the Real Housewives franchise is going to be able to have her back on at
no,
this point after this
no.
has all
Yeah,
been.
because she somehow during the whole process of the show, they mentioned in passing that she doesn't come back for the reunion anymore.
No, she is on this reunion because the reunion is starting next week. Actually,
Okay, okay, but okay. So there is perhaps a slim possibility that because it's gonna make the show as it stands. More eyeballs are coming onto
yeah,
that show, so you
yeah.
know you never know, man. You never
I know.
know.
I
But
just don't know how that
church,
how I don't know how Bravo could like and the people that are going to that church they've got to like watch this and be like, am I in a cult? I mean, you got to question yourself, I guess, right? I don't know.
well, I think
Maybe.
you're past that. I think like you might say it's like it's not murder, it's self-defense,
Yeah,
basically. So it's not we're a congregation, guys. We're not a cult. People are gonna call us that because traditionally churches that are formed where there's always the headpiece and then
yeah,
it comes in, and then you have the fellowship, the worshipers and whatnot. They're all part of the same team, so then they feel they're always under the pastor or under the deacon
yeah,
or under the elders. Therefore, it could be considered or the misconception is it is a cult in many
yeah,
respects. But no, this is a joke. I mean, if you watch this, wherever Mama had going on and constructed, I think they once upon a time it was like an actual well-oiled machine, a church that ran, like
yeah.
any other church, and then they have this like walkout day. The whole thing is crazy. What was it like where he decides to marry the granddaughter, and now a lot of people that are like opposed to it, they walk out, right?
Well, the thing is, like the mama, the grandmother who died, had it in
Yeah,
her will that she wanted her her husband, which was the Mary's step grandfather, she
yeah.
wanted him to marry. So even though they're not blood related, it's still super odd that you would marry your step
It's like ancestral
grandfather.
of just the idea itself
Yeah,
is
it's
weird.
weird
Yeah.
because you know that he slept with. your grandmother, like, and now they have a kid together and all this. It's the whole thing is bizarre.
Yeah, I don't even know. And supposedly it could have just been optics that they were sleeping together. Come and think of it, Mama and the guy. Maybe he
Yeah,
wasn't really sleeping with her all the time. Maybe he was really like reading like late night stories and lullaby.
yeah, maybe. So, and
But you
supposedly
know what?
she had an affair too, though, during this marriage, is what they're saying now. So
Zach,
it's
the whole thing gets even crazier, dude. There is
okay.
a snippet that I want, but you're gonna watch it, so I don't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah,
But we'll
yeah.
talk about it on another thing. Let me ask you, your podcasts are super successful. So hats off to you, man. Quite
Thanks.
literally, hats off to you. When did you realize? When did you first realize, dude, I can literally like make a business out of this? Like it's really gonna take off. Like it's snowballing. It's taking off.
Um, so the first season I was doing it, and I was doing it for fun, and then I wanted to do a news podcast where I kind of just take LGBTQ plus news. I do like 10 minutes or less of kind of like what's happening in the headlines. I was doing that once, maybe twice a week, and then I was doing kind of both podcasts plus working a full time job, and
Wow.
um, I I don't know. I got into a platform and I started getting some ad, like they're like, oh, your numbers are growing and, can we put ad in your podcast? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I started getting like a little bit of money here and there. And then that was great.
Good.
Then I started getting sponsors and they were sending me stuff for free and telling me to do ads and then I get paid for that. And then it kind of just like started from there. And I don't really know, like, I still question, like, how did I get so many people listening to my show? And
Yeah.
I have an advisor now that kind of like helps me
Right.
understand this because he works with influencers and stuff. And I'm like, we had a question. I'm like, I don't understand like why I have people listening because he's like because you're having conversation and you're just talking. And he goes, and you're not looking to be an influencer or a celebrity because I don't care about that. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
I want people to listen to my podcast
Yeah.
and I want people to hear these stories I'm telling. But I'm not looking to like be an influencer or anything. So and he says
Yeah.
that's why it's working for you. And he said, it's you've only been doing it for 2 years, but you have this many tens of thousands of listeners per episode, and that's most people have 300 episodes per episode in 2 years. So he goes, you should be really happy, and he gives me encouragement and stuff. So I guess like season 2 or 3, I'm like, this is working out, and I love it. And then I started getting people wanting to be on the show and coming to me, and I wasn't looking for them. And then I couldn't keep up with all the editing, so I hired an editor, and he edits all the shows, and he's really good at editing, and he's a good advisor too, and he knows his shit and stuff. So I just felt good about it, and just kept it going. And sometimes I get stuck in a topic where I want to talk to too many mediums or psychics, and I got to like kind of switch gears a little bit, and then I start talking to too many people that are in cults, and then I talk about too many people that have survived crazy marriages and stuff. So I now this year I have more of a theme. I have people that are going to come back on the show, and so just it's a lot. It's a lot of work to like do a podcast, book people, edit it, promote it, get it out there, and it's like a full
A lot
time
of
job
work.
just doing that. So, how did you get started? I mean, I know a
That's
little
a
bit
great
about it,
question.
but
Well, I got so I was a limo driver for many years. I drove celebrities, luminaries. I'm in LA,
yeah,
capital, the mecca of Hollywood. Once upon a time, I guess most of it went to Atlanta and New Mexico, but it's coming back slowly but surely. So I drove Elizabeth Taylor,
oh wow,
and yeah, and a lot of other people. I mean, Mel Brooks. I mean, you name it. I had, the
old
Reiners at
Hollywood,
one point, old Hollywood, yeah, and I was completely fascinated, and of course, I wanted to be all my life. I worked in community theater, want to be an actor, shake the right hand, hobnob with the right fellow
yeah,
actor or artist. I myself, um, you know, uh, I've dabbled in all kinds of like radio and done different things once upon a time, but then the thing came up, and I thought about doing audio only because for me, it started with my first show, Juicy Divas Confessions of a Limo Driver, with my
yeah,
cousin Seth Goldstein, and we were in a small space back then. We lived in like a one bedroom, might as well be like a studio in a condo. And so my wife's doing work. I oftentimes say it's like the funniest story, dude. I gotta tell you, my wife's doing work in the main room.
Yeah.
My son is working we give him the little room, but then she's working because this is through COVID, and they work in my son's in school, Calabasas, and my girl's doing work online for the education system.
Yeah.
She was through, she's an educator, or myself as well, but she does, she makes bigger bucks than I do. And let's just leave it at that. So she's working on the computer. So then I don't have anything to do during that moment. I decide I'm going to start a podcast, and I call on some of the people that I've driven that are kind of like C status
Yeah.
celebrities. Try to see if I can get a couple. And I do like we land. I think I land one. I think I land Alexandra Silifant or something, whose husband was like a director producer, and he's I guess like to me, us like 80s and 90s. It's like, yeah, I only remember the guy when I looked him up. Oh shoot, he's the guy in the t-shirts with Bruce Lee, the white dude,
Yeah.
the t-shirt, older guy. So anyway, I get her on the show, and boy, it takes off. But the funniest part is you're in the closet, right? You're in the closet, and you're doing this audio thing, and you're trying to create this makeshift thing, as it were, studio in a tiny little space. So there I am, and almost at times I'm like, it sounds muffled. And I got the pop thingy and everything. I got everything you need, all the gadgets. It's just that it's still going to sound that way because you're in a tiny space. So
Yeah.
after a while, you're engaged in a conversation, and she's going 100 miles an hour, and I'm forgetting, where I'm at. And then I can hear my girl like, "Oh, can you whisper in there? And then she's like, "Where are you? Are you being held hostage?" Story. And then at one point, my girl says, or somebody says something on the monitor, and so Tiana, she answers, and it's not me. It's because you can still hear voice. Oh my god, dude! It was like, it was kind of a shit show, but it was funny in that I made it work. I had to edit the whole piece, and
Yeah.
that's how I ended up starting Juicy Divas Confessions of a Limo Driver, by doing audio only. And then I did little by little, we upgraded, got a bigger place. Then I did the
Yeah.
video component, and then I decided to do it at a studio, and that takes some money. But the whole idea started also because I was, dealing with a lot. I couldn't see my son for like 3 months, dude. He was, because of COVID, his mom was super like leery and like just wary about him getting
Yeah.
really sick and not knowing the outcome of that. So we started hearing people that are going out, and literally lights out on the most minimal thing. And he didn't have any underlying conditions, but he did have a little asthmatic, my son. So I said, you know what, it's best if you're right, if he stays with us. I couldn't see him. In order to cope with all this is like my coping mechanism. Is like, okay, you know what, I gotta channel this out. I gotta definitely look for an outlet. And I decided to do I'd done radio in the past in Orange County, online radio. So I started doing the podcast. And to me, honestly, it's been a hobby that I just recently started. Like, or I really, now that I'm really taking it serious. I, in between, there was spaces where I didn't do it. So I did the Juicy Divas, and then
Yeah.
a couple years went by, and then I did Jim and James Morning Podcast, which is really cool. It was a cool one that we did at Melrose Studios. It's a pretty big studio in LA. And then after, I decided once again take up the reins. My girl's like, "You're getting too loud. You're talking too much." And she would send me off to my room, sort of. The feeling. And so I said, you know what? Why don't I start up another podcast? And hence, I began doing the Almost Radio podcast. I'm Almost Famous Radio podcast that I started at a radio station slash podcast location. Then I decided just do it on my own online, and this is where we're at, dude. So
Do you
it's
love it?
Oh, I enjoy it thoroughly, and I'll tell you, because I wouldn't have met you, Zach. I mean, the chances are, if the cosmic, stars were all lined up, and we were meant to be, it would happen, right? If God wanted to intend it to be so, it would be so. But it's a longer shot. It's not until like I would go to New York or Boston that you and I would cross paths, or maybe here in Hollywood, in LA, someplace. The fact of the matter, 9 times out of 10, I talk to more people online that across the globe. You name it. I've spoken to people in Australia. I've spoken to people literally down under, and where the time difference is, oh boy, it's a 10, 12 hour difference.
Yeah.
When we're in bed, they're waking up. It's sunrise. And Brazil, and so many great artists in Brazil that I've, heavy metal people, fantastic artists from all over. And the thing about it is, I find that I learned something new. Like, you enrich my life. Your ideas that you just finished vocalizing to me, it really set me on a whole thing. Like, you know what? I'm gonna look into the CIA thing, operatives and
Yeah.
intelligence, kind of inner workings, because the sheer fact that I'm enthusiastic. I'm invested. You got my attention, bro. Zach.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's your podcast. You can talk about whatever you want, which is like what's great, So,
mhm.
I had another podcast where I had a co-host and we did a couple of seasons, but I'll just say we broke up and leave it at that, because we have different ideas and stuff. So, and it just, I like having my own show and I can do what I want and talk about what I want and have the guest on that I want
Love it.
and so do you have what do you do when you have a guest on that isn't such a great performance? How do you
Well,
kind of recover that?
so here's the deal, Zach. Like you, I've been all over the world, in terms of, I mean, I've lived in a couple places, but I'm just saying, growing up, my whole escape, in order for me to get out of the house,
Yeah.
I was super poor, so we would read books. So I've read hundreds of books, bro.
Oh
And
wow.
the thing is, I know a little bit about everything, I like to say. So it's like you put a rock star and I could talk to him about something. Then I drove people. So it's like, oh, David Bowie, guess what? I had connections to that as well. And the fact of the matter is, if there's somebody, I'll always find something that we could talk about.
Yeah.
And if I have to pull teeth, I will. And then many a times, I ramble on about one topic. We just stretch it out. Like,
Yeah.
you talk about one thing and you just keep, if that's the topic they want to stay on, it seems like they know more about, and they're enthusiastic about the whole thing. I'm not going to really, pull the rug off of them, so to speak, and
Yeah.
and allow them to just take off. And then, at some point, we'll talk about a couple of other things that I like, and then that's it. That's basically the show. I mean, at the end of the day, there are people that also, one of the things, I never get into major debates. I used to be a debater early on, but I have a political science degree. So we
Oh,
deb- but
so you were a
not
debater.
this is not this is not the arena or the place and time. I think I enjoy telling great stories and enjoy learning about my guests. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I think that's fulfilling for me. I want to learn. I don't want to be a naysayer, or you know what I mean. Oh, I have to play the devil's advocate here and no, no, no. It's about telling stories, about you showcasing your talents, and then for me to be able to promote whatever you offer or you're telling us, and then that's basically what I do. I enjoy
Yeah.
that. That's really what I enjoy fundamentally.
Yeah, that's what I love telling people stories, and there's certain people that I want to have back on because I love. And then the other thing that happens with me is that there's certain guests that I have on that whenever we end the podcast, I'm like, God, I wish they lived in Boston because I want to be their friend. Like I
Yeah,
want to go to lunch with them tomorrow. I want to go to dinner with them on this weekend, like because I
yeah.
connected with them so much, and I just
Do you
it's
connect
so,
with most people? Do you stay in touch with a lot of these people? Like I
um
do online.
yeah,
Um,
online I do. Some I am more in touch with than others. But then there's also the people that just come on, they want to promote something, and then that's it.
yeah.
You never hear from them again. So,
Zach,
like
let me ask you this. Go ahead.
I was gonna
Finish.
say, like sometimes I'll send them the episode, like the YouTube link and all the Spotify and Apple podcast links and everything. Say your episode's out, and I'll promote it on my Instagram. And like I never heard nothing from sometimes. I'm just like, wow, like were they not happy with it? But then I look and the episode got 40,000 listens. I'm like, I got
Yeah.
some business or promoted their website, so why not keep writing back?
Hey, Zach, I think, do you find that, I mean, for you, what are some of the perks? Let's talk about that you've gone along the way. You've done it for a lot longer than I have now, it seems. Um,
um,
what are some of the perks? There are, besides the obvious, us coming away with so much, learning,
yeah. I mean, I think when some brands are whenever you post red ads, you do sponsorships for them. Like you did, there was a clothing company that I did who sent me a bunch of sweaters and stuff, and
mhm.
there was another shower filter company that I worked with, and they sent me the whole shower filter thing. And and I actually like I don't know how I live without it. So and so getting those type of things and getting paid for talking about it, and I don't talk about I won't promote a product unless I really do like it.
Okay.
Um,
So you're
so
authentic. You're
yeah,
true to
so
yourself.
yeah, and then I also think just being able to just meet these people, because I think they're interesting because I picked them in some way.
Yeah.
So it's a story that I want. There's only been two people out of the few hundred people that I've interviewed on my show that um, the episodes actually two did not make it to air because
Oh wow.
but it's only two and I didn't have a connection with them
Yeah.
at all. And
Yeah.
so I always wonder like how does like a Jimmy Fallon or a Jimmy Kimmel when they're doing these late night shows if they don't have a connection with them how do they you got to air it so but
Yeah. Yeah. That has there ever, you obviously just mentioned two. That's good though. I mean, like, has there ever been a time where you really had to stop? Are yours live, by the way? Do you do your show live or do you
no no
pre-record,
they're not
right?
live
So
yeah they're not
okay.
live
It's okay. I was gonna say because there are times probably where you had to cancel in the middle of the show. Maybe you guys are just not agreeing,
I
and you
went
come
through
to
it though
terms, and you're like, you know what?
I got through the show and I did it all and yeah, one guy I never aired it, and he never asked, and I think he knew that it wasn't a good interview because he was just kind of bad talking women, and just
Yeah,
he was just kind of like a male chauvinist, and just
yeah,
really not being a good person. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not having this guy on my show. And then
right.
another guy, again, not to get political, but I wanted to have a gay guy that is a Trump follower and MAGA follower because I wanted to hear like what does he think about it,
Yeah.
um, and he came on and just like completely bashed the whole LGBTQ plus community and said that he hates all these people and he basically hates gay people even though he is gay. And so I'm like, yeah,
Oh wow.
this guy can't. Yeah,
The oxymoron there. Huh?
yeah, exactly. So like you hate yourself. So why did you become on my show? And
And then
yeah, then
scared me up.
we did some research on him afterwards, me and my editor, and he has quite a history of things that he's done that wasn't
It's
great in life.
interesting, dude. That's interesting to me. It sounds crazy, like in and of itself.
Yeah,
It's also though, like I would say somehow it could have made for a great show. The people be watching like, what is this goon talking about?
I really went back and forth and got a lot of advice on if I should air it because I was going to. We went through the whole editing process and we were going to air it. And then there was just two people that I talked to about and they're like, don't do it. Just it's not worth it. Like because he just wasn't his mind wasn't all there. And I didn't want to give him more um, publicity basically. I didn't want to give him more
Yeah, right,
airtime than that.
right.
And I found him like I think I found him like on TikTok or a Facebook group or something, like MAGA Republicans, and I really thought he
Wow.
would be a good guest, and he just was the opposite of what I thought he would be. And there was something in his eyes too that seemed off,
Yeah,
and yeah, but the whole thing was bizarre. What perks do you think that you have?
cringy. That's cringy. If you ask me, I had this one dude who I don't know through who I met, and he was like a comedian guy, or he wanted people to write comedy for him. And then I said, I'm just gonna talk to this dude, and he got on, and he wasn't giving me almost anything. He
Yeah,
was like for the back of little word, a better word, like he was just kind of stoic, catatonic, kind of
yeah,
like not giving me anything. And I thought, you know what, I can't really yank any words out of this dude. So it was like
yeah,
ran for like 20 minutes. And I try to make sense out of what was going on. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps he's a little tired or it's taking him a little time. So we need to process what you're
yeah,
asked. But it wasn't working out, dude. And then he came, it was so weird because I didn't never aired his stuff. And then he came after me. Like for some reason or another, he was like bombing me with the barrage of questions like, what, am I not good enough? Am I not? And it had nothing to do with that. It absolutely didn't. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, long story short, I didn't obviously air that one because this guy went from being okay to being a threat.
Yeah.
And then like I haven't had hundreds like yourself. You had literally thousands. I haven't pumped out that many. I've had, interviewed radio. I did a couple hundred, and then
Yeah.
podcast. I probably got 300 maybe, give or take, between the two podcasts that I did.
That's a lot though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, because I did like these days I do like 3 or 4 a day sometimes.
Yeah.
How many do you crank out? Because I have ADHD, dude. I
Yeah. So
have to
right now,
definitely coffee.
I have three today, plus you, plus doing your
There
show.
you are. There you are.
Um, and then I have two tomorrow. But right now I have enough shows that are being edited to take me through doing 2 to 3 a week to take me
Yeah,
through the end of April. So I have a really big backlog.
you got a lot in the freaking
I
chamber,
do.
dude.
I do. And so I need to kind of like take a little bit of a break, but
Yeah,
somebody comes up that I just find so fascinating, and I'm like,
right,
I can't wait a couple months to interview them. Like, I look
dude.
forward to interviewing people because I love telling their stories.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, that's what we are, storytellers, and
Yeah.
we enjoy just like as I'm enjoying talking to you. So we may have to do a part two, dude, because I still feel like I would love to continue conversing, and maybe when we talk about we can talk about what you thought or your final thoughts on that cult show with
We're married.
the what is it, the
The Real
ladies from,
Housewives.
yeah,
Yeah.
Real Housewives from Utah, which is great. Have you ever been to Utah, by the way?
I have. I've been to Salt Lake City where they filmed it,
Good.
and been to Park City, and
Yeah.
it's a great. And then I did a drive from Salt Lake City, and we went up through Wyoming to Montana. It was through
Wow.
Yellowstone. It was so beautiful. It was like
I
one of my
bet.
favorite.
I Yeah, we drove up there from LA to first we stopped by Vegas naturally on the way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, being in that salt water, it's next level.
Yeah, and the lake's like drying up though now. Were you there when it was
Oh,
kind of going away?
it was,
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah. It was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So
okay.
it was, yeah. Um, Well, I'm gonna wrap things up here, Zach. It's nuts. We've gone on for 47 minutes,
Yeah.
and I feel like we barely skimmed the top of it, man. We could have definitely deep dive into so many things, but I really want to thank you for this and
Thank you for having me
the
on.
opportunity to have you on. Any closing thoughts?
No, your show's great, and I've watched a couple of episodes, and it's amazing. And I think you're gonna. I hope you keep doing it because you got a great thing going. So thanks for having
I
me on.
appreciate you, Zach. Coming from you, I'm very appreciative, and it speaks volumes of the kind of person you are, and I love it. I share a lot of your thoughts, and definitely, your shows are really captivating because you got a lot to offer. I
Thank
learned
you.
a lot today. I really want to thank you for this opportunity to have you on the show, and let's make it a habit. We say we do part two at some point. Are you up
Sounds
for it?
good. I'm up for
All
it.
right.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Real quick, your let's talk about your social media handles. I have one running right now, a little banner. Is that across the board for you, or would you say just type in your
The real Zach RE on Instagram is the best way, and I think it's the same one for YouTube as well. So it's all
okay.
that's yeah.
Well, that's my show, guys. Almost Famous Radio Podcast. Yours truly, Jim Francis. I'm super grateful, guys. That's it. Hello and goodbye until we meet again. Thank you again. Thanks,
Thank
Zach.
you. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you.